Welcome to the Weekend Must Watch on Intercut, the weekly show going through the movies, TV, and entertainment that people just can't cut away from. This week in movies, we had M3GAN scaring people into the theaters way more than I was expecting, because they ended up being the new gentle M3GAN, so Blumhouse is shooting for the moon. Also at home, we had Puss in Boots: The Last Wish coming in at the last minute, scoring a lot of top 10s for a lot of people right at the end of the year. As always, I'm your co-host Arturo Zurita, and joining me to do a little Natu in the pit, it's Zachary Chevy.
Ooh, jealous of all those people in the Chinese theater who get to get up and get together and celebrate RRR in that big of a way. I'm glad that it's the fever is spreading as we get into award season, and there's more people catching up with RRR now than it seems like at any point.
Yeah, I saw you rewatched it too.
Yeah, I had to show my guests on New Year's what the best movie of last year was, even if I didn't name it my favorite movie of 2022. But it's
bleeding into it, right? You started that thing at 9 o'clock, probably went all the way into the new year. It's been crazy with RRR because I feel like there's even been people who will tweet about a movie that they have out, but mention RRR because that's what's trending out of nowhere right at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. I'm excited for it, dude. I think it's going to be an interesting awards run that we have coming up. Obviously, the Oscars are around the corner. There's a thing called the Globes that are around the corner, but that's all over there. For this week in movies, we had what is possibly one of the biggest movie weeks in January, which I was really excited for. Shout out Avatar beating another record. I don't want to become the Avatar podcast, but it is. What is it now? It surpassed Jurassic. Mm-hmm. I think it's in the top 7, if I'm not mistaken. It's about to clear the 2. We were over under with that. I'm happy that he finally made it with it.
We were definitely too conservative in it. I mean, it seems like it's just gonna keep going at this pace, and I don't know if that means that it's going to crack that top 3 of 2 James Cameron films and Avengers Endgame, but it certainly is gonna threaten to.
Yeah,
definitely better than I thought it was gonna be.
Easily. I like how cool he was. He was just like, oh, I guess I got to make the other ones. But besides Avatar sequels, there are actually other movies that are playing in theaters, at home, on VOD, all the good stuff that we have out there. And I figured we start with the one that I think has been on everybody's mind. Ever since she danced her way into our hearts, M3GAN went crazy, bro. I've had this bit. It is so ironic that it came out on January 6th because the M3GAN fans stormed the Cineplexes everywhere. The newest movie from Blumhouse, which I didn't know. They pitched this to Warner Bros. And Warner Bros. Said, nah, we already have Annabelle. WB continuing in 2023, I guess it's a 2022 decision or whenever it was, to make the worst decisions possible. But Zach, does M3GAN live up to the hype, or is it just another meme-worthy movie?
I mean, it's a little bit of both, I think, because I don't think this movie is very good, but it is in its own way kind of great. They did a really interesting thing, and they've combined 2 really popular subgenres. There's the evil AI subgenre of smart homes and advanced tech and 2001's HAL and stuff like that, and then there's also the horror subgenre of the creepy doll, your Annabelles and your Chuckies and what have yous, and kind of fusing them together. You get to play on 2 really familiar but fun campy horror elements, and they're definitely leaning into the camp. It has the structure of a horror film, but the rewards are all based on the comedy, at least for me, because it's not exactly the most innovatively scary horror film. I don't think it has a whole lot to say about our reliance on tech. There's certainly a commentary there on motherhood and being a parent and the implementation of technology to take away some of the babysitting tasks, but really it's just an excuse to have a weird doll singing Sia as a lullaby to a little girl. And if that's what you're in it for, it certainly delivers.
Yeah, look, I like the story. I think that they had an element to it that I think speaks to a lot of people today because of the technology that we
Hmm.
have.
Yeah.
Um, I am a person who wants the rated R cut. I felt that the tone for this was all over the place, in my opinion, and you can tell when you have Ronnie Chang in this movie and the people
Yeah.
who he's talking to. When they cut to their reactions, if they're laughing, then chances are he was probably saying a lot of funny things, right? They were talking about deaths that were cut from this, that were trimmed down. There was one involving a dog, which I think was the best decision they possibly could have made. But it's interesting to know that Blumhouse, the house of Blum that lets directors make whatever they want to, the moment M3GAN went viral with this hallway thing, it was clear that they recut it to fit something, that was going to go viral with it. And hey,
Hmm.
it has greenlit sequels already, according to the director. I don't know if you heard, he went to Patreon and kind of like leaked to his patrons that he was already writing the sequel.
Oh
I
man.
heard there's an unrated cut that's on the horizon, which I think would be interesting to see.
Cool.
But in terms of the new Blumhouse model, because he was one of the first to pick it, if this movie is in theaters in 2 weeks, is it still worth catching in theaters amongst all the hype?
I mean, I do think my viewing of it was extremely benefited by having a theater full of other people reacting and laughing, and just sort of like the sort of viral laughter where a little pocket of the theater starts laughing at something, and then ultimately everybody, then it echoes out to everybody. Like, that's the joy of this movie, is seeing it in a crowd and seeing all the ridiculous nature of it. If it is in a smaller, in a sleepier screening, an emptier room, I could see it
About
landing with a little bit
yeah,
more of a thud. I could see it sort of being uh you see the desperation of it more. And I know some people who didn't have as fun of a time with it, and I wonder if they maybe just weren't seeing
the
it
screening.
in the right room. Yeah. So maybe that, I don't know how this movie will play at home. It certainly will play well in memes and in GIFs, and maybe that's all it needs really to sustain
Probably.
a interest in a sequel. But there's certainly a lot of interest in it right now. $30 million in the opening weekend, one of the
Bro,
biggest January releases we've had.
the movies, they're back. They're back.
The
I agree with you. If you're not
movies.
going to a movie, if you're not going to a movie theater, where the people like clap at the AMC at the beginning, you're probably gonna have a different experience. But overall, to me, I think it's still worth the junior price. I like just barely because of the virality of it. If you have a good crowd with it, but I am waiting for that unrated cut. Big shouts out to two people here that are part of this movie. Violet McGraw. We've
Mhm.
mentioned her in the past because she's always the younger version of someone, be it
Yeah.
from The Haunting of Hill House to obviously in Black Widow, she's Helena's younger part. So that's
Hmm.
already banked for her in her future. Do you know who her sister is?
McGraw. I don't know.
First of all, I thought she was Tim McGraw's daughter. It's not Tim McGraw's daughter. Her sister, if I get it correctly over here, Madeline McGraw, is in Black Phone. She had a killer year last year, and it turns out that both
Oh,
sisters
okay.
are just powerhouses. So they've been killing it completely. And then in terms of what a lot of people were really surprised to see, no one mentioned her during the whole run for what was it, Malignant. But Akila Cooper came in, and I was listening to interviews of her throughout the weekend. She is one badass writer, bro. She's worked on
Hmm.
Hellfest. She's did Malignant. Everyone's been talking about her this weekend because now that she's got
Yeah.
two original pockets under her belt, she has become the next hot writer. And I don't know if you know this, Malignant was still under Warner Bros. But did you hear that they've combined Atomic Monster Studios, which is James Wan's company, with
Yeah.
Blumhouse? What do you
Yeah.
think
No,
about
I
that?
heard about that partnership. I mean, it feels like that's basically the place to go for any kind of mainstream horror, or not even just mainstream, any kind of horror now. They're sort of
Blumhouse?
the mega corporation of it, unless you're talking about those like elevated A24 jams. But if we're talking about like movies that people go to the theater to see, that's
Yeah.
almost exclusively like James Wan and Blumhouse stuff, right?
Yes, 100%. Shout out to Keela. I love what you said about the elevated horror. She had this quote this past weekend about it was just all elevated horror, and I'm back to bring fun horror. So shout out to
Yeah.
that. And in terms of James Wan, for Blumhouse, it is a steal. Wan made the Saw series And now that's making money for other people. He's like, all right, then let
Hmm.
me do Insidious. And then he did Conjuring. And like every single thing this man touches, there is no
Yeah.
reason why he's still getting no's. So I'm rooting for their partnership. Hopefully it comes up with a lot of really good sequels. I've heard
Yeah.
of spin-offs. They want to make a Doll Avengers. So we'll see what the future holds for it. But in the meantime, M3GAN out in theaters. Let us know your theories on what the sequel's going to be called for M3GAN.
Did you like it more as a horror or as a comedy? Or do you think it worked both as both?
Um, I don't really call it a satire, but there's the director had made a previous movie called Housebound, and he
Hmm.
does this thing where he calls it I like to find the humor in the horror. So it's not
Hmm.
fully a comedy and it's not fully a horror. I'm more on the
Yeah.
comedy side. It's the
Yeah.
funny moments of what she represents that was better. This isn't scary. It's not a scary movie. It's
That's
not.
the thing.
So
It didn't
you should be
scare
okay.
me, but I
It
I
didn't
was
scare me.
entertained.
Zach, you know what did scare me? And this is just a
Mm.
little aside right here. I was telling Zach, if you saw this in the theater, they decided to up the DB on this thing. This is a movie for next week, so we'll save it. But there's probably nothing scarier than the trailer to this movie right here. So if we're talking the difference between scary and a Blumhouse viral movie, Skinamarink feels like the cursed video in a movie that people watch and die in 7 days. It's online. I highly recommend not downloading it because I think it will put a curse on your computer. But moving on to the complete opposite of all of this horror, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Literally a movie that came out right at the end of the year at Christmas. A lot of people were anticipating it because it looked like they were doing a different art style. But it's been 10 years since the last Puss in Boots movie. It's been almost damn near a decade since the last Shrek movie as well.
Yeah.
This movie came out and people who do nothing but complain about movies even loved it. It moved the Grinches of the cinematic world. And in 2 weeks, it's out on VOD. Um, I appreciate that because it costs way less to purchase this movie so I can play it for my
Yeah.
family than buying everybody tickets. And it is a blast, Zach. I don't know how you felt about this one, but I'm obviously a really big Shrek fan. I
Hmm.
love Antonio Banderas, obviously. So him coming in to do Puss in Boots again, I thought was really great. And I thought they were able to elevate it to another level.
Yeah, I mean, I think I grew tired of the Shrek franchise around the last couple of them. Like I love
Fourth
the
isn't
first
that
couple
good.
Shreks. That's the thing. It's the third is definitely a step down, and the fourth is another step down. But
Yeah.
Puss in Boots is like a great character. I think he's just a really fun creation of like, the mixture of the sweetness and this cuteness with this like energetic and like daring violent energy. It's a very fun idea, and they're able to do a lot with it. It just feels like a very like a gift that keeps on giving. I do
Hmm.
remember not loving the Puss in Boots spin-off that came out 11 years ago, but this one is
Yeah.
really delightful. This one's really fun and sweet and just thought felt. I don't know. I'm they're packaging a movie about accepting the inevitability of death into a kids film, which is
Yeah.
really cool and out there. And I think it's just full of these like little delightful asides, all these jokes that maybe it's just having a break from the Shrek universe, or maybe it is that the jokes are just a little bit more refined this time around. But like the
Hmm.
fairy tale reference stuff all worked for me this go around. It's one of those movies where you're sitting there and you hear a voice and it's like, oh, Olivia Colman, oh, Ray Winstone,
Right?
oh, Florence Pugh, yeah. And I was just happy to
Pat.
hear so many people, John Mulaney getting a part in this too. uh
Pretty decent.
I think it just like made me laugh more than I expected it to. There's lots of little things that they sneak in there that are definitely a little more adult skewing. I think the animation style like worked really well and didn't feel like too much of a departure from the more realistic Shrek style. Like it still kind of feels the same. It's just more in the actiony moments that you get some of that visual flair and the almost like Spider-Verse influenced
Yeah.
color splotches. But I thought this one was really good. It surprised me. What did you think about it?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. I'm gonna raise what you said about the way it talks about death. I love
Yeah.
the way it talked about legacy. With all of the
Mm.
movies that we had last year, having a movie where this is a cat who's so egotistical, as they say in the movie, he didn't just stand up his own wedding. The other person didn't show up because he knew that it was only going to be about him. And I like how they were able to break down the idea that this ego that he has in a year where we have Top Gun Maverick, in a year where we
Mhm.
have a lot of Marvel movies that are, it's all about the legacy and what they're able to continue. For someone to just be like, it's not about that. This had more of an Irish Banshees element here, where you realize it's more about the people around him, and I like how they have that for every single character. You had mentioned Florence Pugh, who comes in with a mix on the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, who are hunting for this last wish, right? Looking for a family as they are one. I
Mhm.
like the voice work that was done with everybody else, especially Guillen, I think is his name. Yeah, Harvey
Harvey
Guillen.
Guillen, my
Play,
boy from What We Do in
dude,
the Shadows.
talk about him. He
Yeah,
absolutely killed it in voice acting. This is his
he's
first.
so
He needs
good.
more. He
Yeah,
is
and
incredible.
he's just got this like really sweet energy to him that I think works very well in the way that he's cast here. I don't know. I think he's a delightful addition and just delightful generally.
Yeah, he's fantastic. But I'm gonna keep it a buck with you, dude. Is it the best animated movie of the year?
Ooh, that's a good question. This was a really good year for animated movies. We just got another big contender for the Oscar in Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio at the end of the year for Netflix. I
I
think
really
we are
like that one.
both I think we're both extremely big fans of Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which maybe you don't consider it to be animated, but at least the
I
Academy
do.
does. So uh, I don't know. It's a tough race out there. I also really like the Sea Beast from earlier this year or last year, I should say, on
Underrated.
Netflix. Yeah, one of the
Yes.
underrated picks from this year. I personally would still go Marcel above Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. But what about
Mm.
you?
Dude, Marcel, Pinocchio, Puss in Boots. We got another one we're about to cover in a little bit.
Yeah.
I would take all of those. We usually have a year where it's like the Pixar movie's going to win, the Disney movie's going to win, and then there's like the
Oh,
one that should.
we're completely overlooking Turning Red, which is also incredible.
That's dude. We there's also a new what's it, the Secret of the Cows. That whole saloon, cartoon
Hmm.
saloon, has another movie
Hmm.
that's just been sitting on Netflix with the dragon one.
Hmm.
It is such a stacked year for animation. We are spoiled, which leads me
Yeah.
to a question I have to ask you. You had mentioned Spider Verse, and you're right. Have we not just become the inverse of the Pixar thing again? Pixar got to a point where their animation was so pristine that anybody trying 2D or anything else was looked down upon. Spider Verse has happened, right? And there were movies before Spider Verse, but after Spider Verse, Mitchell's, there's a couple even more that I'm blanking. I'm sure the chat will help us out. And in Puss in Boots, are we? It's still great animation, but are we not doing the same thing in reverse, where we're now omitting anything that doesn't look like Spider Verse?
I don't
Because the
know.
cartoon saloon's sitting there. Sea Beast
Yeah.
isn't getting the love that it needed to, and people were critiquing the animation, and I'm like, I feel like we're stuck on this comic style, which is great. It is fine, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, what I actually think it is that for a while we were in this lull where the Pixar movies weren't hitting, the DreamWorks attempts to copy them weren't hitting either, and it felt like most of the movies in that style weren't worthy of attention the same way that your cartoon saloon movies that you were, that like your
Fair.
Studio Ghibli movies that would come in would deserve that attention. I feel like we've been getting a lot of really quality, well-told films that are also kind of big scale animated movies. So it's just like there's only so much attention to go around.
True, I guess.
I don't know.
Let's not forget Marmaduke to round up the best movies of animation in the year. But there is one more to wrap up the theaters that we have
Yeah.
here.
Another
Um,
movie that was shortlisted by the Academy for its best animated feature selections.
I believe it comes from France, right? It is titled
Yeah.
Little Nicholas, based off of a series that has
Le
been here
Petit
for a while.
Nicolas.
It's got a bunch of movies. I believe there's a bunch of books. But what they do here is that they go the route of kind of following the artist who created Little Nicholas, while Little
Yeah.
Nicholas is also there. And it's adorable. What'd you think about it?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's really sweet. It's a really interesting idea to simultaneously make a film about this cartoon character while also using that art style to tell the story of its creation, and it's
Yep.
simultaneously like a kid's film about a little kid and a ode to the artists, and a really beautiful kind of ode as well. uh it's an interesting sort of mix because while it is kind of focused on these really like simple charms, these very like ordinary moments in life, from going to school and playing in the sand and having the neighbor's kid come over and stuff like that. It also has these like deeper ideas in there of uh, that era in France, because the cartoon and film takes place in 1955. The background of the creators, including a unexpected uh, tangent into Nazi Germany that I was just not not expecting to happen an hour into this. Yeah, right. But like it's a really beautifully done film. While I don't know if I responded as much to like the actual scenes of the film, I think there's sort of like a sleepy kind of quality to some of it.
Yeah.
It's the art that really took me away. Like it has this very kind of sketchbook style where there's almost always a white border around everything because it hasn't been fully filled in, like the artist hasn't finished drawing it yet. They'll do these splotches of like watercolor that are beautiful. To me, the highlight of this film is this one transition from day to night that is one of the most beautiful things I've seen in an animated movie this year. It's stuff like that really captured my attention in the Petit Nicolas. But what about you? What were the things that you really thought were the highlights of the film?
I like the creativity that they had with it. I was listening to a couple of interviews that I was able to because they were, they're all speaking in French. So if anyone knows French and wants to translate those interviews, please let me know. Because they were talking about the creative process being a mix of when they were in that creative world and when they were kind of doing like a New Yorker palette. So just that in and outs of them being in their creative process, and then when they were trying to be more professional, that was really interesting. But I would highly recommend this one for the art, the animation. I believe it's playing limited in some theaters right now, obviously as it's qualifying for the Oscars. But it should have a virtual release hopefully later. So if you're interested in it, know that this is another shortlisted film, and it's worth it for the animation. Little Nicolas. You've been saying it in French, so you can say it better than I do.
I don't know French. I just like pretending I do, and they say Le Petit Nicolas enough that I can pretend I know French.
But wrapping it there with Little Nicholas and all the ones that are out in theaters. We also have our streaming premieres, a bunch of movies that are out in theaters that I know a lot of people are watching. Definitely many went back to rewatch The Menu, which is out on HBO Max now. A lot of people were able to rewatch a lot of the lines, especially Hong Chau saying tortilla. I don't know if you were able to rewatch this one, but I wanted to put it on people's radar now that people have a chance to catch it.
Yeah, I didn't rewatch it since it's hit HBO Max. I saw it twice in theaters, so it's plenty. And we also had our ending explained after credits, a whole thing. I know a bunch of people have been checking that out since the film hit HBO Max. Nice. So if you want more thoughts from either of us, you can check out that video too.
Head over there. We had also covered a movie out of Chicago, The Kings of the World. This one is, and I blinking. I want to say it's Columbia. Here I am trying to play the movie. Kings of the World is a movie that is shortlisted for the international competition, and I was surprised to see that it was going to get a Netflix release because this is a movie where the best thing that it has going for it is its cinematography. It has some jaw-dropping stuff. Hopefully, have a really good TV at home as you catch this movie by Laura Mora, who is doing. I don't know if it's going to be on here because it's a series. She's doing the 100 Years of Solitude for Netflix as well. So she is a big director coming out of South America. And this is a story of a couple of boys who are trying to make it cross-country in order to be able to use the deed that the mom left behind for this plot of land. That's the whole story. And it's the boys' journey and all of the perils along the way. But in my mind, it has some of the best cinematography of the year, and it even won production design out of Chicago. So putting that on people's radar, as well as Alcarràs. Zach, I've had MovieGo for about 2 months, and I still haven't used it. And I still won't because I caught this in Chicago as well. But this is the MovieGo movie of the week, and I think they actually timed it so that both everyone in New York and LA and Chicago are watching this one. This is Spain, thank you. Submission. So a lot of submissions are finally getting out there in January for people to catch in terms of their shortlist. So this is a great movie. It's good. There was another movie dealing with families picking stuff that I liked a lot more. That's Under the Fig Trees. So I'm going to use Alcarràz's spot to promote Under the Fig Trees. But this one is out and limited in most of the big cities out there. So if you're interested in another Oscar pick, you got that right there. But moving on to the actual streaming stuff that we have. You had some picks, Zach?
No, I was just going to mention that Under the Fig Tree is Tunisia's selection. You're mentioning a lot of the movies that are international submissions to the Oscars that did not get shortlisted right now.
Wait, they're not shortlisted?
Nah, they didn't make the 15.
Oh, my bad. Here I am just
Yeah.
loving movies. I apologize. They don't matter
Too much
anymore.
love to give.
Canceled. They're gone. All right. Moving on to the new stuff that we have. I apologize, Zach. I made Zach watch this movie called Bromates because I thought it was like a Fox movie that was going straight to Hulu, and this was a movie that should have gone straight to the trash. Bromates,
Yeah.
two longtime
Yeah.
friends realized that they probably shouldn't be together. But when Big Head over here loses his girlfriend because she moves next door with Flula, his boys decide, yeah, let's try to get you out there. And yeah, I hope they didn't take him to go see Bromates because that would have made him really bad. Bromates.
Why is he still Big Head? Like, I don't refer to Thomas Middleditch or Kumail Nanjiani or Martin Starr by their Silicon Valley names, but this dude is always going to be Big Head, isn't he?
Big Head.
It's just sort of perfect.
He's not going to be Mythic Quest. It's Big Head. He got a big head. I don't know what to tell you, man. Thomas is the Verizon guy to me, but did this have any redeeming merit with it streaming on Hulu? Is there any reason to catch this?
In a comedy like this, that's going for like big, broad, obvious laughs and throwing as many jokes at the wall as they can think of, like they're gonna hit you occasionally. You know, like, yeah, it might be like they threw it blindfolded and it just went across the plate or whatever, but like maybe there's like a 1 in 50 hit rate, but like you might chuckle a little. Honestly, my bigger takeaway from it was honestly a bit of like embarrassment. Like, it's one of those movies where there's this visceral cringe at imagining what it must have felt like to have to act out some of these moments and to sell the comedy in this. So good on Big Head and Lil Rel Howery for at least like trying and eking out like 3 or 4 laughs from me. But I don't know, man. It's the kind of movie where a bunch of kids start chanting pedo at Big Head because he offers them ice cream. And it's like, if that joke hasn't been done 100 times before, it's because it's been done 1,000. You know, it's just, you're not getting a lot of originality from Bromates.
And to think it's the writer of Old School.
Yeah.
Bromates on Hulu. Feel free to leave it there. Another one, Zach, that did come out on Netflix. It had a little bit of a theatrical run. The Pale Blue Eye. I had requested this one, and they had delayed it a little bit by the time we got it. Damn. I go on Letterboxd to see if everybody else had the same opinion. Yeah, even the people who got it earlier than us. That's why that's why they ended up giving it to us, because nobody was finishing this movie, Zach.
Mhm.
This is a film where half of the people I follow on Letterboxd were logging it as an hour in, bro. I have never gotten a push notification from Netflix. It literally hit me with a like ESPN doo-doo-doo. Are you still watching? No. So I asked you, Zach, did you finish The Pale Blue Eye?
I did. I somehow got to the end of this. Yeah. I don't know. It's a fairly typical in some ways period detective piece. You know, it's Christian Bale is a guy in a military academy in 1830, and there are a series of mysterious murders around the camp that he's looking into, and in order to be assisted in his investigation, he calls on none other than a young Edgar Allan Poe.
What?
Surprising to have Edgar Allan Poe as just like a character in this movie. Even more surprising that he's just kind of a silly goose. He's a bit of a silly dude, played by Harry Melling of The Queen's Gambit and Harry Potter fame. I like their performances. I like Christian Bale, but I think what's interesting to me about the movie is maybe the first 2/3 of it feel very standard, don't feel very stylish, don't feel very out there. It's kind of feels like a very down to earth telling of a period crime story, and then the last third of the movie there's like twist after Satanist
Oh,
conspiracy after secret daughter after all sorts of stuff happening, and it like it just becomes, it goes from this movie where it felt like there was not much happening to everything happening.
to
And
100. Okay.
and yeah, it's a little bit of, I got a little bit of a whiplash by that point. I mean, it's like competently made, but it's not particularly interesting. I felt like
Hmm.
Scott Cooper is a director who I feel like I have mixed results with. I feel like there are some people who think his movies are really fascinating and deep and have a lot buried underneath the surface of them, but I've never really found them accessible. There's something that's a little impenetrable about his stories
Hmm.
of like tough men and their
Yeah.
gritty, tough issues. I don't know. Do you have any favorite Scott Cooper movies, or are you also a bit mixed on his output? Because he's
I
done
yeah,
a lot of notable films.
yeah, Out of the Furnace, Hostiles, Crazy Heart. I know was even able to get some awards recognition. He
Probably
always
my
releases his
favorite.
movies right before Sundance as well.
Hmm.
Surprisingly, I don't know why. Out of the Furnace, it's so
Yeah,
grimy. I felt he got the world of how disgusting that like Milltown was. I
right.
didn't want to be in it, but I don't know. I kind of had to give it to him. Um, yeah, I'd probably pick that one. So you're saying I should finish Pale Blue Eye?
I don't know if you should finish it, but like it will definitely get more interesting. It will, you won't fall asleep during the back half of it.
All right. I love how that's the review. Should you watch it? No. Should you finish it? Pale Blue Eye out
Maybe.
on Netflix. One of the last releases of the year as it premiered uh, on the platform. AMC Plus is a thing. They have a new
Yeah.
movie that they're claiming. Netflix said a movie a day throughout all of 2022. They delivered. AMC Plus says a movie every Friday, and this is an old one, but it now has a streaming release. Vesper was a movie that I had on my radar because I thought it had a really beautiful poster. I'm a big sci-fi thriller guy, and it seemed like a very interesting kind of story, and where it's like obviously a post-apocalyptic future, and you got this kid named Vesper who, with his little like Wilson robot, is just trying to survive all the terrain, and it's fine. I think it's a movie that visually and especially with the sound is able to get you invested into the story, into the world. I can't say that the performances like immediately wow you or that the story is going to envelop you in any other way, but it's a very beautiful looking movie. It's what I expected from the trailer. Did not surprise me in terms of story, but it's on AMC Plus, and I thought they were able to stream it pretty well. I don't know if you had the chance to catch this one, Zach.
No, I haven't, but it's on my radar. I've been told it's really good. It's from a few
Yeah,
people at this point, so
yeah, I would recommend it visually. So if you
yeah.
have AMC Plus, it's streaming in 4K there, and I think it's a really beautiful movie to look at. It's a decent
Yeah.
story. It's just visually is where it really stands out. So
Mm,
Vesper out on AMC Plus to wrap that
cool.
up. Moving on to the television side of things, Ginny and Georgia did come out. Not making this a segment, just putting that season 2 out there because Zach and I both had this thing where we went on it, trying to give it the time of day, and we just did not have melodrama time.
Yeah.
So
Just
Ginny
a
and Georgia
little bit
season
too
2,
much, too
too
much
much for the
melodramatic
morning.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah, not even the morning, the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So instead, we decided to watch. I don't know in what order. Maybe forwards, maybe backwards, maybe down the middle. Kaleidoscope, the new series of Netflix that Zach had some thoughts on.
Well, I mean,
Tell people
it's
the specific way.
it's advertised as a show that you can watch in any order, which is cool because at least from my experience of it, you can watch it in any order and it's bad either way. Like any way that you want to order the episodes, it just does not work. And I
Oh
don't
damn.
know, like I think this is the kind of idea that I would have found really cool a while ago when I maybe knew a little bit less about the medium, and now that I have a different understanding of it, I feel like I I, I understand the reason that you structure things a certain way so that audiences
Yes.
have rising tension and then falling tension, and that you get introduced to characters and then subverting those characters. And their solution to all of that is to kind of simplify everything so that no matter what point you enter in, you won't be too confused, but you also won't be too interested because it's just a little bland. Like the heist isn't
Yeah.
that cool. The characters don't have unique backstories. Their dynamics feel like ripped off of other things. It's just like a very the only real interesting thing here is the construction, and the construction doesn't work.
Sadly. The way that they were pitching this was they realized that with the binge model, it doesn't really matter where you begin or end, and then they just ran with it. I was like, "That's all y'all had going." It's like they
Yeah,
saw the numbers Money Heist did, and then went, "How can we make the most bland version of that?" I agree with
yeah.
Zach. During the Quibi days, they were telling every single person, "Bring your movies in," and then chop them up at every 10-minute point, and they forced these rising tensions. Zach's 100% right. If you don't have something that you're leading to, it's because they're too lazy to actually build a narrative. The
Hmm.
heist, all that, all the whole storyline it's like bare minimum. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
not the worst thing in the world, but it becomes so bland because uh, there's not really a cohesive way to watch the series. It's like they
Hmm.
know that people give up on a lot of these shows halfway through, so they're like, well, what if you don't know when you're halfway through? It's so goofy, and
Yeah.
the other elements to it, because they're all named after colors, right? So the
Hmm.
production people were like, right, so everything's violet then, and I'm like, oh my goodness, is that all we're gonna do? Everything's
Right.
green now, and it's like elements that don't even need to, and then you'll cut to another episode. And then they just lose that consistency because now it has to be the color of whatever the episode is. I like
Yeah.
it if you like color theory, but there's not really any theory to it. They just kind of
Yeah.
threw things at the wall. Hey, it's fine for what it is. The performances aren't too crazy. Bro, it took me a second to realize that was the boy Jai. I was
Yeah.
looking at him for a little bit. I was like, damn, Jai. He, menacing in here. I'm glad he's still getting roles,
Yeah.
but it took me a second to register it was him. Giancarlo's good. He's innocent, I guess, but he's put himself in a pickle. I feel Giancarlo from Far Cry voices to the
Hmm.
boys. I want to see him do something different. I feel like they've
Yeah.
pegged him down.
I mean, it's the unfortunate thing that his role as Gus Fring is so iconic that he's been asked to kind of like
Do
sand
it.
off the edges of it for all sorts of different productions, and whether that is like popping up in Star Wars, popping up in The Boys, being in this, it does sort of feel like we're getting the same Giancarlo performance, maybe different, like different
190 times.
sides to it, but like yeah, over and over and over again, especially because like they literally brought back Gus Fring on Better Call Saul. Like he's still
Yeah,
doing that character up until late last year. uh I think he's a really talented actor, but I need to see him try something different.
agreed. I like how they put it in the chat. This sounds like the best idea from 2007.
Yeah.
Yeah, sadly, but hey, it's out there if you were interested in it. Kaleidoscope was probably the biggest release of the week because before we get into the picks of the week, we got the real shows that are coming out in January. But before we do that, Zach, give a shout out to the inner cuties.
Yes, we got to shout out the Intercuties, the wonderful patrons who support the show. They are Ewan, Renee, Julieta, Tim, Elizabeth, Josh, Ashley, Brady, Sean, Michael, Matt, Mr. Kobayashi, Nick, LaShawn, and Devesh. Then our Academy level members are Tushar, Cademan, Connor, Pete, Marion, May, Ricky, Joe, and Genesia. And of course, the biggest thanks goes to our producer level patrons. They are Awkward and Uden Veer. And Sam, thanks to all of them. Thanks to all of you for your support. And a reminder that you too can become a member over at patreon.com/intercutpod, where you can sign up for patron benefits like early access to our Intercut episode outlines, access to our private Intercut channel, Discords in the Discord, access to some episodes early. We put up our best movies of the year early for patrons, and you get an invitation to our monthly patron Google meetings, the next one of which is going to be happening when we're at the
At
Sundance Film
Sundance.
Festival.
Ooh, hey,
It's
show them.
exciting.
Show them,
Yeah, oh
bro.
yeah.
It just came
I
in.
got the
Fresh.
Sundance sweatshirt,
There you go. Do a little
brand
spin.
new. Oh yeah, like do I got them on all? It's got the writing on the sleeve.
Dude, the
Yeah,
new merch is very clean. I
it's
picked up a
comfy.
bunch
It's
of it.
beautiful.
Yeah. And y'all were
Unicorn
matching
model
too.
thing.
Caitlin's got one too. Come on, Caitlin,
Yeah.
you got to do the double up. Don't worry. Oh, she's gonna come in.
Yeah.
Do it.
No, she's not. She's not.
All right, we'll have it for
She
the
was
for the
thinking about it.
Sundance patrons.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be
Exactly.
doing that because
Exclusive.
on the final days we'll have some time, and I kind of want to do it where we just live stream in the car as we drive around. Give the Inner Cutie patrons
Yeah.
like a virtual walkthrough through Sundance. So that's gonna be an awesome
You know,
patron hangout.
We were talking about going to the Sundance Resort. We should bring the Inner Cuties with us.
Nah, bro, for 45 minutes just driving, we're gonna lose signal. But we will have a bunch of clips that we're going to be doing from there. We're still going to be doing live streams out of Sundance. We're going to be doing obviously our best of as we always do. A reminder for those of you who are looking forward to it: member tickets went on sale today. There's going to be more on sale
Yes.
later. We are going to put on our top 10. We have our preview list, but we want to put a list together for our top 10 picks right before the festival starts. And obviously, we're going to be providing coverage all throughout that.
Yeah. So the public tickets go on sale 2 days from now on the 12th.
Mhm.
So if you are trying to get some of those virtual tickets, maybe put that in your calendar, set a reminder, and yeah, we'll be discussing the best of Sundance very soon.
It's going to be dope, dude. So let's
Yeah.
talk about the picks for the week. Before we get there, I see that I missed two. One is the 80th Golden Globes. They missed themselves last year, but that's going to be tomorrow. And really, what Zach and I are looking forward to is this man right here, dude. They know exactly how to bait us. These damn Golden Globes know exactly everything that they did wrong, and they're like, I guess we should just do the opposite. Yeah, y'all should have done that years ago. We will be there just venting about this next week, seeing how that turns out. But hey, I'm rooting for Gerard. He's the best.
Yeah.
That'll be streaming tomorrow.
Oh, and he's the kind of guy who could potentially find an
Roast 'em?
interesting path to walk where he is holding them accountable while also taking their money. We'll see how it turns out. This is what we do. We talk about the entertainment industry, and if everybody's gonna be showing up except for Brendan Fraser, then we might have to tune in too.
Yep. Brendan's right though. After
Yeah.
that, Zach told me, "Yo, did you catch the new Nicholas Winding Refn?" And I'm like, "What Nicholas Winding Refn?" I'm over
You
here.
mean the new NWR?
How was I to know? This man has a whole mini series on Netflix called Copenhagen Cowboy. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it, so this isn't even like a pick for the week. It's just a missed for the week is what I got. I don't know if anyone's caught this, but if anyone has, let us know if it's any better than that Prime show he had last year. After that one, I'm kind of burnt out a little bit, but Copenhagen Cowboy out on Netflix, the whole series there. But let's get into our
So maybe
real
we'll talk about
picks
it
for
next
the
week.
week.
Yeah.
Break it down, Zach.
My first pick for the week is one of the ones we talked about earlier, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Woo.
It's delightful, it's fun, it's something you can watch with the whole family in the theater, or as Art mentioned, it is available on premium video on demand. You got to pony up 25, which not
30.
a whole lot when you're comparing it to going to the
30.
movie theater. Is it 30? I think it's 25 on Apple, bro.
Bro, I bought it off Apple. 30. It was 25 and they
Oh.
raised it $5 in the middle of the weekend.
What?
Yes.
Greedy. Well, it's still less than going to a movie theater, although you might like that big screen experience. Get yourself a bucket of popcorn. However you want to do it, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is delightful. Over on Peacock, I got two picks because Paul T. Goldman, still continuing
boy.
on with his interesting life story, getting the director more and more involved. I just love all the meta qualities of the show and how much you feel like you see him. The show, how much the show is about where the truth and the truth according to Paul kind of collides. It's really, really funny. So you can
He's
watch
sick.
that in preparation for this weekend's release, which is sick, coming to Peacock on
that is your pick?
January 13th. Yeah, I got
Paul
that
T.
too.
Goodman was sick. That last
Paul T. Goodman
episode
is
for
a
Paul
sick
T. Goodman.
individual.
No,
Oh,
I
man.
thought the first three we covered were bad. He hit the threshold and then somehow crossed it in the last one.
I have a feeling we're going further in the last two. We'll see. We'll see.
All right, talk about Sick, the less sick movie.
Yeah. So Sick was one of my favorite films out of the Toronto International Film Festival. Just a really solid, like a stripped down slasher flick that comes from Kevin Williamson, the man who wrote the original Scream. So it's got that horror legacy to it. I think it's really well done. I really love the visceral cinematography in this one that has these really quick pans for the action. I was hoping this would get like a kind of cool later in the year horror release. They're
Yeah.
just dumping this one on Peacock on Friday, which I mean, cool
Blumhouse.
for Peacock fans, but yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity with a pretty cool movie.
Definitely, especially because a lot of the jokes in here, it being like a COVID movie that they're isolating,
Yeah.
it really does hit well with the crowd. There's some early jokes with some sneezes that I think you need an audience for that. But yeah, I'm gonna double this one up too. I'm glad it's available though.
Yeah, I'm just glad to get another chance to catch it soon. Another movie that I'm glad I'm just getting a chance to catch.
Yes.
Not sometimes these short films are a little hard to find. You have to wait until years down the line for them to be available. Not Ice Merchants, the new short film from João Gonzalez, friend of the pod. João
Shout
Gonzalez.
out.
He's we're mutuals on Instagram now, so shout
Beautiful.
out to him. Hopefully he's going to be an Oscar nominee soon because The Ice Merchants is a gorgeous short-listed
What I
animated
say?
short film. Yeah, I mean, Art shouted it out as one of his favorites out of Chicago, and for good reason, because this movie's like about 10 minutes long, and it left Caitlin and I just in a puddle of tears the other day. Like
Ooh.
it is so beautiful, and it's one of those stories that's not just like a beautiful story, but it's also told really beautifully. The animation style is this very very artistic, very unique, uh I don't know, very very like stylish type of
Hmm.
art. And I love it. I love the colors of it. I love the messages of it, and that ending really really hits. Worth it, and it's only a couple minutes long.
That's it. And it's available on the New Yorker website. We'll try to link it down
Yes.
below. That is the best possible thing to happen. I like just the fact that they have so many shorts available there, but to have what I consider the literal freaking best short of the year,
Oh yeah.
man, we're living in some great times. Ice Merchants. Highly, you know what? That's my pick of the week. That's my pick
There
of the
we
year
go.
so far, there for sure. But you still got one more.
Yeah, my last one here is one that I actually haven't seen yet. I'm going to give a shout out to Devotion, which is now available on Paramount Plus, the other Flyboys movie from last year
Yeah,
with Glenn
yeah.
Powell, also
Glenn Powell.
starring Jonathan Majors.
Yes,
You told me
sir.
this one was pretty good, and I
It's
just didn't have the
it's
chance to
solid.
catch it in theaters. So yeah, it seems like an easy watch over on Paramount Plus, not an uncomplicated weekend watch. So
Damn.
I'll put this one on the list as well.
Bro, they really got it over there with Top Gun on the same platform.
I
Damn
mean,
it.
you can watch them one right after the other. It's probably great.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Hey, look, I'm glad that it's streaming because the worst
Yeah,
thing that this movie had going for it was the fact that Top Gun was out. I think
yeah,
it's an okay movie. It's not going to blow anyone's mind out, but I think with it streaming, hopefully you're able to enjoy it for what it is as a biopic. And
yeah.
yeah, Jonathan Majors year. It is Jonathan Majors year, bro. Moving on to my picks over here. Saint Omer finally getting that release. I feel like I've been
Yeah.
pushing this every single week, and I'm proudly doing it. Saint Omer is one of the best movies of the year. It is a patient movie. I said it is a patient movie, but it is worth it. I'm telling
Hmm.
you. The story that is kind of based off of a true story of this woman who reportedly, allegedly, supposedly may have drowned a child, and the report of the journalist who's going through her own personal history kind of relating and observing this court case. It's a really good movie. I hope people get the chance to catch it. It might come to movie because I feel like they sent us a link through movie, or was it just straight neon? It might get a digital release soon because the moment they're giving us
Neon, yeah.
links, it's about a month before it appears somewhere. So put that
Yeah.
one on your radar as a nice festival pick. Mars One finally came out, and damn, did it come
Marteum.
out in a crazy time, considering this is Brazil submission, and there is an
Yeah.
underlying theme dealing with that I feel a lot of, I guess, American viewers missed. But more than that, there's a lot of negative reviews on Flickster. It's positive here on Letterboxd. It's positive over here on IMDb. But bro, there are some Brazilians who spammed it on Flickster, and that's when you
Yeah.
know it's hitting some buttons. It's actually a very
Hmm.
simple tale. Zach and the crew were able to catch it at Sundance. I missed it. It is now on Netflix for everyone to watch. The story of a family where the little kid wants to be, an astronaut, but his dad's like, no, you have to be a soccer player. And it's a very simple story that I think really packs a punch when all this
Yeah.
miscommunication happens within the family, and how that's even more indicative of what's happening in the country during that time. I recommend it. I don't know if you've had the chance to rewatch it, but It's
Not
solid,
since it
dude.
popped up on Netflix, but yeah, I liked it a lot coming out of Sundance last year, and it is one of those films that's a little bit hard to sell just because it is so much like about the lived in feel of it. But like you said, I feel like it's something that, as much as I felt like it resonated last year, it might even resonate more now.
This get shortlisted, or is it just submission?
It just got its submission. It did not get
Ah,
shortlisted. Yeah.
well, it's out on Netflix. Give it a watch if you're interested in it. Along with, we had just had this last week. We said if you can find it in a theater, go. Zach, you can now purchase Broker at home.
Hey,
Broker is at home
hey.
and available for you to watch with whatever babies you've picked up from a box, and I think you would love it. Cariata's also got a Netflix series on the horizon. I'm really excited for that as well, but probably not as excited as I am for The Last of Us. This
Ooh.
is my most anticipated TV thing of the year, bar none, and it's coming at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. I
Yeah.
already purchased the remastered thing, and I'm playing it with Alina for the first time. We are going through every nook and cranny. Bro, that
Nice.
remaster, I know it was 2013 when I played it. And then they had the other one in 2014. But The Last of Us Part 1 for the PS5 looks
Oof. It's
unreal.
yeah, it's a new game.
It's a brand new game. And
Yeah.
people already have The Last of Us, and they have said that it delivers on every aspect possible.
Yeah.
I am so
I
excited
think
for this.
I think that every bit of news we've been getting about the show seems like they're doing everything in their power to kind of have it live up to the immensely high expectations
Easily.
that people already have for it. And
Uh,
I'm ready for it to blow me away this weekend.
Yeah, I am as well. But then if you need something a little nicer, Mythic Quest, the season 3 finale just wrapped. That was a beautiful culmination
Yeah.
of stuff that has repeated in the past. But they were able to do something different with it, and it has me very excited for where they're going to take season 4. This has been Zach and I's like go-to show. He put it on my radar when he said, "Hey, they're getting on up there with HBO," and this has
Mm-hmm.
been one of their most consistent shows. All 3 seasons are worth it if you haven't caught up on it. Really great show over on Apple TV. So, rewinding my picks for the week: Mythic Quest with all 3 seasons on Apple. The Last of Us. Please, please, if a PR person is watching, we love Naughty Dog. We love HBO. Send us all The Last of Us. Broker, that is now available on VOD. Mars One, that's available on Netflix. Saint Omer, that is getting a limited release. What about you, Zach?
I had Devotion now that it's available on Paramount Plus. The Ice Merchants, which you can
Woo!
catch over on The New Yorker. Shout out again to Zhao Gonzalez from that one. Sick, which drops on Peacock Friday the 13th. Probably the best horror movie that you can catch Friday the 13th. And then also stay on
Wow.
Peacock to watch Paul T. Goldman, this year's early contender for the Nathan Fielder Cringe Award, or whatever you want to call it. It's so funny. And lastly, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. It's fun, it's delightful, it's cute. It's a good time at the
Beautiful.
movies, regardless of your age. So those are the Intercut
Nice.
picks for this week, and where y'all can catch them, at least in the US.
Beautiful. Well, that's all for this week's show. Zach, where can people find more from you?
You can find more from me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterbox, whatever you have, you at Zshevich. That's ZSHEVICH. And you can check out my YouTube or TikTok channels at Multiplex Show.
Beautiful. You can catch every episode of the Intercut podcast here every week. You can catch it on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, your favorite podcatcher. I always tell Zach, I got the files. You can catch every live video on YouTube.com where we go through all of the weekend must watch every Monday. It's Tuesday. We had to move some things around, but we got you every week. Big shout out to all the Intercuters who listen
Had to
live,
move some
all of the
headboards around.
patrons. Yeah. And all of the iTunes listeners who are giving us that 5-star, beautiful 5-star review. Hey, it helps us. We have been getting a lot of Sundance screeners because we can send a YouTube link. They'll be like, you send an Apple or a Spotify link, and they think you're like on that next level. So we appreciate all the Intercuties leaving us those 5-star reviews. Don't forget to leave us a comment, drop a like, follow the socials over on Intercut Pod. And until next time, keep watching movies or Megan's going to come get you.